Have you ever wondered what's inside a smartwatch? I had a specific need for a smartwatch, so I took this broken one apart to see if I could fix it. I got a bit distracted taking it apart, however, as it turns out that there is a lot of interesting tech packed into these watches. And I guess the same could be said for smartphones in general. This video is broken into three main sections. First, we'll be looking at some interesting things under the microscope. The second section focuses on the steps I went through trying to fix the watch. And lastly, I'll show why I needed a watch and how it ties into a specific silicon doodle, which I also will take a closer look at with the microscope. Without further delay, let's start looking at some stuff under the microscope. First up is this heart rate monitor component. This part is located on the bottom of the watch and would be looking directly at your arm. The nearby LEDs would be used to illuminate your skin, and this pink colored chip in the middle would sense changes in the reflected light due to your arteries expanding and contracting from blood flowing. The pink color actually comes from a filter that is placed over the silicon chip in order to block certain frequencies of light, which I assume in this application is infrared light, which is the type of light that our bodies emit. It's hard to look through the filter, but you can just barely see the photodiodes through it. Next, let's take a look at a sensor on the other side of the same PCB, one that appears to be used to track this knob. This part looks like a proximity sensor, which contains a VCSEL, or vertical cavity surface emitting laser. This laser emits from the surface of the chip in the center of this circle. The laser would then reflect back down to the photodiodes below in the chip nearby. I'm assuming that as the knob is turned, the surface roughness of the metal results in a change in reflected light. How you can tell direction from that, I'm not sure, but maybe it works. There's one more optical sensor in this watch, and it's an ambient light sensor that faces towards the screen. The topmost layer of this integrated circuit prevents us from seeing any of the circuitry below, but the photodiodes are still easily visible. Similar to the heart rate sensor, there is a pink coating over some of the photodiodes, but there are also some exposed ones as well. The function of this sensor is to sense the ambient light on the other side of the screen, likely used for a screen off function if you were to set the watch upside down, or for automatically adjusting the screen's brightness. Speaking of the screen, let's take a closer look at the screen itself, which is also a work of art. This screen is a P-OLED and is made using similar processes to those used to make integrated circuits. Zooming in with the microscope, you can see some of the different layers that make up this screen, but much of the details are obscured thanks to the substrate they were formed onto. This screen measures 1.38 inches in diameter and contains a grid of 480 by 480 pixels, which yields an overall pixel density of 348 ppi. On the outer edge of the display that would normally be covered by the bezel is the control circuits for the rows and columns, each with their own numbers. The screen is attached to a flex cable with some anisotropic conductive film, which is essentially an adhesive with conductive balls embedded in it. When the assembly is compressed and cured together, the tiny balls make electrical contact with the screen and flex cable, but not other balls and adjacent pads since they are spaced so far apart. It's now time to see if I can fix this watch. The existing battery measured 0 volts, so the first thing I did was buy a new battery. The new battery appears to be identical to the original, but it also looks a little sus. The overall shape, label placement, and the angle the flex comes out are all a little bit different. The new battery measured 3.7 volts, which seemed fine, so I threw it in and put everything back together. Overall, taking the watch apart and putting it back together is really straightforward and pretty easy. It was just a few screws and a couple of flex connectors. If you want to see a full teardown, you can watch the video that I watched, which shows you how to do it step by step. It's linked below in this video's description. The last thing that I connected was the battery and crossed my fingers that it wouldn't explode. All that's left then is to press the power button and see what happens. The watch turns on and the LG splash screen is visible, so this is definitely a good sign. But eventually the screen goes black and nothing else happens. My next thought is that 3.7 volts is too far below the nominal 3.85 volts of this battery, so perhaps the watch thinks it's dead. I disconnected the battery and instead connected my benchtop power supply to it and attempted to charge it. I started at 3.9 volts with a 100 milliamp current limit and let it charge for an hour. But unfortunately, that still didn't work. So I charged it again for another hour at 4.1 volts, and that still didn't work. I even charged the battery all the way up to 4.4 volts, and still nothing. Next, I tried to boot the watch into recovery mode, which seemed promising at first based on how long the screen was on for. I was even able to look at it under the microscope because it stayed on for so long. Here's what the pixels look like from the front side. Can you guess which color is which? Without the microscope's light on, this is what color the pixels actually are. With the light back on, the green looks red, the red looks green, and the blue looks yellow to me. Anyways, recovery mode failed, so I decided to just abandon the battery altogether and hardwire power directly into the watch. I cut the end off one of the batteries and scraped off the polyamide layer to expose the copper underneath. With the copper exposed, I was able to solder wires to the flex. Since the traces are duplicated on both sides of this flex, I was able to use one side for power and the other side for ground to make soldering easier. With both wires soldered, I now had an adapter that I could plug into the watch and give a constant voltage and monitor the current draw. I set the supply's voltage to 4 volts, connected everything up, and hope for the best. Progress. The watch is now getting past the point where it would stop booting and the Google splash screen pops up. The watch eventually finished booting, which shows it's mostly functional. It looks like I might have gotten a second bad battery. I looked around the watch, and eventually I found out who the original owner was. My guess is that the original battery likely died and could no longer be charged, so the owner sent this off to be scrapped. At any rate, I decided to factory reset it so that I could pair it with my smartphone. After a factory reset, I was able to successfully pair it with my phone, so the next thing I did was install the application that this whole video relied on, the Facer app, which to my dismay, doesn't appear to be compatible with the LG Watch Sport. So I gave up on the smartwatch and instead bought a used Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 on eBay, and here are the results. Why do I need this 007 GoldenEye watch? Well, it's all because of this chip, the CSR41B14, which is a Bluetooth chip from Cambridge Silicon Radio. I thought that the watch would be a great way to tie into the Doodle on this chip, with the added benefit of some secondhand nostalgia. To extract the silicon from inside this part, I clamped it in a vise and heated it up with hot air. I was able to separate the PCB layer from the epoxy and eventually chip away at the epoxy to remove the silicon chip. A small piece of epoxy stayed attached, but luckily it wasn't blocking the parts that I needed to see. Let's get it under the microscope to take a closer look. On the theme of 007 GoldenEye, this chip's codename is ODDJOB, which should hopefully give a hint as to the silicon doodle that we'll find. In the nearby margins is some additional text that reads BC4-ROM-MR, along with a copyright date of 2004. This octagon-shaped structure is an inductor, and there's a few that can be found throughout the chip. There's actually 2 silicon doodles on this chip, and the first one is this creature, which actually turns out to be the Soup Dragon. The only reason I know this is the Soup Dragon is thanks to CPU Duke, who found it on another CSR chip. Moving across the chip to the other side is the second doodle, a doodle of the best Nintendo 64 007 GoldenEye character, ODDJOB. I really like the amount of details that they were able to put into him by using multiple layers. Well, that's basically it. I wanted to show this doodle and I thought it would be cool to use the iconic GoldenEye watch as a tie-in, which ultimately led me down a side quest of trying to repair an old broken smartwatch that I happen to already have. Could the watch still be made functional with another new battery? It's certainly possible and maybe something I'll revisit in the future. I'm worried that all of the replacement batteries available will all have the same issue from sitting for years, and there could also be some other issue with the charging circuit that's probably more work than it's worth to fix it. At any rate, thanks for coming along this whiplash-inducing ride with me. If you'd like to help support the work I do, just watching and liking this video is enough, but if you want to go above and beyond, go check out what I have for sale in my online store, which includes silicon wafers, PCB coins, and a few other random things. If you want to chat or keep up with things that I'm working on, feel free to join the Chip Chat Discord server. Thanks again for your support, it really means a lot, and I'll see you in the next chip.